I woke up and thought I was still dreaming. My land looked like a county fair gone wild. 500 tents and RVs stretched across my pasture. Bonfires blazing, beer cans popping, and right in the middle stood Karen, the HOA president, screaming through a megaphone, "Welcome to the Freedom Campout." They weren't just trespassing, they'd turned my home into a circus. Hours later, that same circus would collapse in panic when I swung open a gate and 24 bulls poured in like a moving wall of muscle. Now let me take you back to how it all started. My name's Evan, and I live on a ranch that's been in my family for 3 generations, 200 acres of pasture cattle and fence lines I know like the back of my hand. It's not glamorous, but it's mine, every blade of grass earned with sweat and calluses. On the other side of my eastern fence sits a subdivision that sprouted up like weeds about 10 years ago, vinyl siding, cookie-cutter yards, and a board that believed every single blade of grass had to match their bylaws. And leading them, Karen, late 40s, platinum blonde hair, big hat, clipboard glued to her side. She thrived on control, and the HOA was her kingdom. From the first day she saw my property, she hated it. My barbed wire fence didn't match her vision of suburban paradise. My bulls, big gentle creatures, were, in her words, a liability and an eyesore. At first it was petty letters in my mailbox, claims about unauthorized vegetation growth, warnings about the noise of livestock. I laughed, tossed them in the trash. But the letters turned into threats. Threats turned into demands. She wanted me to join the HOA, even though my land had been deeded decades before her subdivision existed. Then came the walking trail they paved right against my fence line. Glossy brochures bragged about access to greenbelt views. Funny thing, the so-called greenbelt was my pasture. I confronted her once, map in hand. "Karen, this is my deed, my fence line. Step 1 boot over it, and you're trespassing." She just smirked, that HOA smirk that never touched her eyes. "We'll see about that," she said. And right then, I knew trouble was coming. Friday afternoon proved me right. SUVs, campers, trailers lined up down the road. By the time I rolled up, my driveway was blocked by 2 guys in neon vests, flashing plastic badges that read HOA Security. One of them waved me off. "Sorry, rancher, campground's full. You'll have to park elsewhere." I stared at him. "Son, you're standing in my driveway." But behind him, I could see it. The sea of tents, grills, smoking kids tearing down my no trespassing signs like souvenirs. And there she was, Karen, standing on a folding table with her megaphone shouting, "The community has spoken. This greenbelt belongs to us." The crowd cheered. Beers lifted like it was Independence Day. I called the sheriff. When the deputy showed up an hour later, he shook his head, muttered, "This is a civil matter. Without a court order, I can't remove them." Karen nearly danced with joy. She announced into her megaphone, "See, the law's on our side." The crowd roared, phones held high, recording every second, painting me as some grumpy villain standing in the way of their fun. I went home that night, shoulders heavy. I sat at the kitchen table under a single lamp, staring at the old survey maps and deeds my father had left me. For a minute I wondered, was I the stubborn one? Was I fighting a battle I couldn't win? Maybe Karen was right. Maybe the law really was against me. I actually thought about giving up, letting them have their weekend. But then I remembered my dad's voice. Don't waste your breath fighting on their terms. Let the land do the talking. That night, I made a plan. I filed a formal livestock movement notice, perfectly legal, stamped with the county seal, stating that at noon the next day, I'd be moving bulls from one pasture to another. I documented everything: fences cut, fire pits dug into dry grass trash, piling high gray water pooling in ditches. I dropped copies at the sheriff's office. The county clerk even taped one to the hood of Karen's shiny Lexus. And then I called my lawyer friend Dale. He looked over the photos and whistled. "This is open and shut, Evan. You've got trespass, property damage, nuisance, environmental violations. You're covered 6 ways from Sunday." I smiled, tired but determined. Good, because tomorrow I'm letting the bulls do the talking. The next morning, the campers were still going strong, music thumping grills, smoking kids running wild. Karen strutted like a general in her wide-brimmed hat, clipboard under one arm, megaphone in the other. She barked, "He won't dare. We've got the law on our side." But I had something better, the law in my pocket. At noon sharp, I walked to the north gate with 2 wranglers, Jake and Tom, at my side. Behind us, 24 bulls lined up like black storm clouds, silent and steady. Karen spotted me and raised her megaphone. "Don't you dare," I smiled. "Oh, I dare." And with a click, the gate swung open. The ground seemed to shake as the bulls stepped forward, dust rising under their hooves. To me, it was routine, just another pasture shift. But to the crowd of campers, it was the apocalypse. Gasps turned to shrieks. Tents collapsed as people scrambled, spilling beers and coolers. Drones buzzed overhead, live streaming the chaos to the world. Karen screamed, "Stand your ground. He's bluffing." But no one listened. A younger bull kicked his heels, tossing dirt. The crowd stampeded faster than my herd ever could. And then it happened. One bull brushed against a shiny golf cart parked too close to the fence. Metal crumpled like a soda can, alarm blaring into the sky. The campers lost it completely. "Call 911. They're going to kill us," someone screamed. Right on cue, the sheriff rolled up. He stepped out, tipped his hat, and stared at the scene. 24 bulls calmly moving in line, 500 trespassers losing their minds. He whistled low. "Well, I'll be. That's one way to clear a trespass." Karen rushed him red-faced, yelling into her megaphone, "Arrest him! Arrest that rancher right now. He unleashed wild animals on innocent families." The sheriff raised an eyebrow, holding up the notice I'd filed the day before. "Ma'am, those are livestock, not wild animals. And he informed us of this drive. He's within his rights. You're the ones trespassing." Karen sputtered, but the crowd was already scattering tents, collapsing RVs, peeling out. The festival she'd bragged about was crumbling into a landfill before her eyes. But humiliation doesn't humble people like Karen. It fuels them. The very next morning, I was served with an emergency injunction, claims of endangerment, reckless intimidation, even animal cruelty. I laughed at the papers, then called Dale again. He wasn't worried. "She's got theatrics. We've got facts." And the facts kept stacking. County inspectors showed up and hit the HOA with citations, illegal bonfires, fuel storage violations, unpermitted food trucks, gray water dumped in my pasture. Businesses pulled their sponsorships. Insurance froze the HOA's coverage. Neighbors angry about skyrocketing dues started whispering about getting rid of Karen. By the time we went to court, the HOA was bleeding out. Karen strutted in wearing a bright red blazer, like war paint, flanked by lawyers the HOA could barely afford. I walked in with Dale and a single binder thicker than a family Bible, every photo, every video, every receipt. Her side went first, painting me as a reckless cowboy. They played shaky phone clips of bulls walking calmly through the pasture, narrating them like a horror film. Karen leaned back smug, like victory was already hers. Then Dale stood, calm, precise, methodical. He laid out the survey maps, proving the land was mine. Trail cam footage of campers cutting fences. Sheriff's reports confirming my livestock drive was lawful. County citations, environmental fines, insurance notices, all pinned on the HOA. Finally, he handed the judge the last piece: tax lien receipts. Months earlier, I'd quietly bought up delinquent liens tied to several HOA common parcels, which meant if they defaulted, I had legal leverage over the very land Karen had been parading around as hers. The judge flipped through the documents, eyebrows raised. So not only did the HOA trespass, but their president misrepresented ownership of land they don't control. Karen's smirk vanished. The ruling came swift. The court dismissed her claims, upheld my rights, and ordered the HOA to pay damages, legal fees, and fines. The gavel cracked like a rifle shot. Karen slumped in her chair, her clipboard bent in half at her feet. Her neighbors, once cheering, now whispered about recalls and resignations. I walked out lighter than air. Not because I'd crushed her in court, but because I'd done it the right way, with patience, preparation, and a little help from 24 bulls. And if there's one thing I learned through all this, it's simple: boundaries matter. Ignore them, and you'll get moved.